1,000 kilometers, 5 different countries, 6 different cities, 21 days, €0. My name is Edward, and in June 2016, I traveled for 21 days with absolutely no money. Now, the first question you might ask is, why did I do such a thing? Well, there were many reasons, but the one I'd like to share with you today was to remind myself that life is one big adventure and that I should live it to the fullest. That life is about meeting people, approaching strangers, and doing something crazy. So from Germany to Hungary, here was the challenge: to travel with no money. I emptied my wallet before leaving home, and I hit the road. And to toughen up the challenge a bit, I committed to not use internet. So I couldn't use websites like Couchsurfing, Helpix, that allows you to find accommodation or a host for free. And like this began one of the most incredible experiences I've ever lived in my life. When I came back home, everybody asked me the same question. How? How did you do that? How did you survive for 21 days with absolutely no money? I can't even survive for 1 day with no money. I have to sleep somewhere, I have to eat. How did you do that? Well, here is the secret. When you travel, you basically have only 3 things to pay. The first thing is transportation, getting from point A to point B. The second thing is food. What are you going to drink? What are you going to eat? And the last thing is accommodation. Where are you going to sleep? And you can make these 3 things free. And here is how. For transportation, I hitchhiked the whole trip. I've been picked up by cars, trucks, vans. Well, that wasn't a van actually. That was a hearse. You know, the kind of vehicle that transports dead people. So this hearse was transporting a dead from Dresden to Leipzig, and let's just say I had the privilege to be part of the wonderful journey. I even got a ride from a smart car that was driving 150 kilometers an hour on the highway in Germany. I have to say I didn't even know such a small car could drive that fast. And I have to say that I was a bit afraid. For foods, I was asking restaurants for leftovers. As would be expected, I received a lot of bread. And I have to say that during 3 days, that's the only thing I ate: bread and water. But as you can see, I was happy. But most often than not, people would cook real meal for me, from scratch, or give me delicious dishes. This is how I had Thai, pizza, kebab, chocolate cake with cappuccino, gratin dauphinois. That chocolate cake and that macaron at the #1 cake shop, according to TripAdvisor in Budapest. And that little soup and that fruit juice in the #1 restaurant, according to TripAdvisor again, in Vienna. A quick one about that restaurant. When I wanted to sit down, the waiter even pulled out my chair so that I could sit down. I mean, I have to say, nobody has ever done that to me before in my life. And for accommodation, I was asking random people on the street, hey, can I sleep at your place tonight? As expected, 9 out of 10 times, people told me no. But that means that 1 out of 10 times, people told me yes. And even though sometimes at 4 a.m. I was still in the streets looking for someone to host me, I always found in the end somebody. And I didn't sleep a single night outside. Now, what are the lessons that I've learned from doing this? Today I'd like to share with you 3 of the biggest lessons I've learned from doing this trip. And I believe these are lessons we can all apply in our daily lives. Because in the end, life is a journey too. The first thing I learned is to redefine my view about rejection. Now, we all face rejections in our daily lives. We go to a job interview, we don't get the job, we get rejected. We go talk to that pretty girl in a bar, we get rejected. The thing is, most of us experience rejection on an average of once a day, once a week, sometimes even once a month. We are not so used to it, and that's why it hurts so much. But there are 2 things I'd like to share with you about rejection. And that comes from a guy who has experienced an average of 20 rejections a day between the rejections I faced when I was hitchhiking, asking for food, or asking for accommodation. The first thing I'd like to share with you is that people are never rejecting you. People are rejecting the idea you represent. When you are hitchhiking, for example, who has ever hitchhiked in his life? Autostop? Who has ever done that? Wow, that's a good group. When you are hitchhiking, for example, the vast majority of people who won't take you hitchhiking won't do that simply because it's in their identity. That's who they are. They don't take hitchhikers. End of the story. Don't take it personally. This is not about you. And the second thing about rejection is that rejection does not mean you will have nothing. Rejection just means you'll have something a little bit different. When I was asking random people in the streets, hey, can I sleep at your place tonight? When people told me no, I wasn't telling myself, that means I'm going to have to sleep outside tonight. I was just telling myself, all right, that means I'm going to find somebody else and live another experience that might be even better than the one I just missed. We shouldn't be afraid of rejection. It is just part of life. And to me, rejection, getting what you want in life is just a matter of being willing to experience enough rejection before having what you want. The second lesson I've learned is that if you drop the fear of approaching people, the world can be an amazing place. Traveling with no money forces you to constantly meet new people because your survival depends on them. Sometimes in our daily lives, we even struggle to ask for a way when we are lost. It is just so easy to take our smartphones and ask Google. We are not so used anymore to start a conversation with a complete stranger and start a relationship out of nothing. But this journey taught me to drop my fear of the other. And I've learned that you don't need a good reason to start a conversation. You don't need to be in the same sports club. You don't need to be in the same university or introduced by a common friend. Dare to say hello to a stranger. Dare to just run in a bar and say, hey, I just met you, and this is crazy. I mean, dare to say, hey, I saw you, I thought you were cool. My name is Edouard. Don't say your name is Edouard, unless your name is Edouard. But dare to say it. This guy and his friends were carrying a couch around Vienna. At each famous stops, 7 of them, they had to drop the couch, lay on it, and just enjoy life. When I saw them, I had to introduce myself. So I told them, you guys are amazing. And they looked at me and they told me, you want to come with us? And this is how I ended up spending the whole afternoon just carrying a couch around Vienna. And the last thing I've learned from this trip is that there are no such things as bad experiences. To me, they are only experiences that lead us to better things. But I believe we should never regret anything. Because in the end, the bad things that happen to us make us grow and lead us to better things. I think it was the second night of my trip. I was in Leipzig, Eastern Germany, and I began to ask random people in the street, hey, can I sleep at your place tonight? Around 8 p.m. And 4 hours later, and 20 rejections later, I found myself at midnight, complete darkness, still alone with nobody to host me. And I began asking myself questions. Questions like, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself in such conditions? Why I experience so many rejections, so much pain? But then I met those 4 German girls. And they told me, yeah, we can host you tonight. I was so happy. But then they looked at me and they told me, but first, we go to a nightclub. And you are coming with us. There, I was in heaven. At some point of the night, one of them asked me, Edouard, come on, what's the worst thing about traveling the way you do? And I thought about it, and I replied, well, you know, nothing. Because you see, tonight I experienced more than 20 rejections. During 4 hours, I felt really bad. But all these little rejections and bad moments led me at the right time, at the right place, where I crossed your path. And going to a nightclub with you is not something I'm going to forget for a very long time. So I regret nothing. And that's basically the story of my journey. How all these little rejections and bad things I've lived led me to meet the people who made my journey, and to live moments I will remember as long as I'll live. As a closing, am I trying to sell you something? Am I suggesting that you should just leave your wallet and all your money at home and start traveling the way I did with no money? Of course not. If it's not your thing, don't do it. All I want to say is, dare a bit more. A little bit of courage can change your life. It certainly changed mine. Ask yourself the questions, what would I do if I were fearless? Dare to face rejection, go talk to that stranger, and live life as if it was one big adventure. Because it is. It really is. Thank you.